Hey everybody, Matt Postier, Sickle Bike Shop. Had a lot of requests and people come in all the time. They're like, man, can you just show me how to bleed my brakes? Yes, we can. Today, just a specific example, we're going to do Shimano, because that's what I have here. And we have in stock the pieces you need to do a simple lever bleed on your bike. So the question is, how do I know if I need a bleed? Well, on a Shimano brake, if you're cruising along, you grab your brake lever and there just is that weird like squishy factor to it. Or if you've noticed when you grab your brake, the point where it touches the pads is closer to the bar than it used to be. Good chances there's probably some air in there. Another thing too is if you, on a Shimano brake pad or brake, if you feel like you need to pump your brakes up, like you need to do this sort of thing to get your brakes to actually feel really good, for sure you need to do at least a lever bleed. So you can do an entire full bleed on your bike. That's going to be a little more complicated than a lot of people have the capability or the desire to be capable of doing. So the lever bleed is something that's really simple. Everyone can do it. First step, if this is on your bike, rotate your lever up to where it is horizontal. So this right here is a 2.5 millimeter cap. That's going to just come off like this. And again, you want to make sure that this is rotated in a position where when you pull this cap off, fluid isn't going to come pouring out. Now the key with Shimano is right here, this little O-ring is often going to stay inside of that. That needs to go on this piece that you just pulled out. That's really important. Make sure that it is actually on that cap that you pulled out. Otherwise you're going to forget it in there and it's probably going to end up getting stuck on your bleed funnel. This here is the funnel. This is what Shimano and a lot of other brands use to bleed. This goes on the lever end. This fills full of fluid. We've got those right here. So if you have Shimano brakes and you want to be able to do this yourself, you need this. That's going to just thread on. These are just plastic threads, so go easy. You don't need to force anything on there. So once that gets to just, you can feel it snug up, stop. Because again, plastic threads. You don't need to crank those on there. Now, this right here, if you have Shimano brakes, this is very important. You want Shimano brake fluid. It's this reddish pink color. There's other mineral oils out there, which is what Shimano uses, but they're not going to be pink. And so if you go and you pour in a different color oil, it's going to look like it's burnt. So the next guy, especially if I'm say working on your bike and I go and check your fluid and it's black, I'm going to drain the whole thing out. It might be fresh fluid, but if it's that black color, we're draining it out. So get yourself the right oil. It's Shimano, it's pink. That way you can actually tell if the fluid inside your brakes is good or not. So we're going to pour a little oil in here, in this funnel. It doesn't need to be crazy full because we're going to be moving this up and down. You want enough that you're not going to get any air coming into it. Alright. Now before we start here, all of your Shimano brakes are going to have an adjuster of some sort right here. That's adjusting the lever, so how far out your reach is on the lever. For doing these bleed procedures, you want to make sure it's extended as far out as it can. So mine's already there. If yours isn't, there's either going to be a dial here that you can do, or you need to put in a hex key in there and turn it out to there. That's just going to make it go quicker. It's not absolutely crucial, but that will make it go quicker. So next up, we're going to pull this plunger. Now you can see right here, if we get the camera right inside of there, as I squeeze this lever, we've got bubbles coming up. So on a lever bleed, we're not going to actually even open up the other side of the caliper. We're going to just do everything on this end. And so ideally when we're doing this lever bleed, we have the lever at the highest point. So gravity is helping us get those bubbles down. So if it's a front brake, that's really easy because your lever is already the highest point of the system. The caliper is all the way down at the end. If you're doing a rear brake, you're going to have to get the front wheel of your bike up on a table so that that brake is the highest point in the system. So we can use gravity to get these bubbles out of the way. So here on my little display stand, again, my lever is higher than the caliper. If I want to get really fancy, I would undo all of this and string my caliper down all the way onto the floor. If you have a bike that your brakes are not, they don't go through your frame, you can easily take your brakes off your bike, hang them up, say on a ladder or something like that, and do this whole thing that way, or just hang them down off the bike. It'll make your life a lot easier if your lever is the highest point in the system. The more dramatically higher in the system, the quicker it's going to bleed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just squeeze this lever nice and firm, and then I'm going to let go of it. So it's going to have this dramatic pop that way. What that's going to do is it's going to suck the fluid into the system. As I squeeze it, it's going to pressurize that line, and then any of the bubbles are going to work their way up to the highest point in the system, because those bubbles want to float. So we're just going to keep doing that until we don't see any bubbles coming out of the bucket. One thing you can do also, if you can feel it's a little squishy yet, you can rotate your lever assembly down just slightly. Repeat the same procedure, and then what we find is also if you rotate it back the other way a little bit, squeeze that a little bit, and then go back to level, you're going to want to obviously make sure you finish with this at a level position, because when you pull this off, you don't want oil leaking out all over the place. So finish at this position. The reason we do that rotate back and forth is inside of these, there are all sorts of sometimes little nooks and crannies and stuff like that where pockets of air can sit. So by rotating it, we're just displacing air into other locations to hopefully get all of it to come up and out of our funnel here. So once you're at a point where you're satisfied with the amount of air that's come out, you don't see any more bubbles, you grab your plunger, you put it back in, and then again we're going to make sure this is nice and level. So when we undo this here, we have the minimal amount of oil leakage. So there you can see it's nice, it's full right up to the top. And again, we're going to make sure before we install this cap that we've got that O-ring on there. And we want to make sure that on our bucket there's only one O-ring on there as well. So sometimes the O-ring from the bucket gets stuck in there, sometimes the O-ring from the cap gets stuck in there. What you don't want is to end up with 2 O-rings or 0 O-rings. 1 O-ring is the ideal amount of O-rings. So we're just going to thread this on there, and then tighten it snug. Grab a rag, clean it up. The beautiful thing about Shimano is this stuff is mineral oil. It is non-toxic, which is great. It's kind of nice on your hands actually. It's like putting lotion on. Wipe it all up. Squeeze your lever, rotate it back to the position you want, and off you go. So again, this is there's tons and tons and tons of videos online for how to do full bleeds, stuff like that. Shimano makes it really nice, the bleed kit. This funnel is all you actually need to do really any of the bleeds. You can do a full flush. You can go a long ways on a Shimano set of brakes with just having this funnel. We do have their more substantial kits if you want the plungers and all that kind of stuff. We've got those kits as well. We've got the mineral oil here. Anything you need from the Shimano standpoint, we've got it here. If you want to learn to do SRAM, other brakes like that, you do need a few more pieces to the puzzle as far as the hoses and stuff like that. But none of them are really that difficult to do, and there's tons of videos online. If you want to see any other videos on other brake systems, let us know. We can certainly do that as well. Shimano's the most common because they're the ones that the lever bleed makes the most difference. And it's something that a lot of people, if you have Shimano brakes, you'd probably benefit from having a lever bleed at least once a season, maybe twice a season. So yeah, thanks guys, appreciate it. Later.